Hello and good evening. Not sure if anybody is there, but I'm here. Hello, Laura. Yes, so here we are. We're live again. I do apologize. I wasn't able to chat with you all yesterday because yesterday my hay fever kicked in and I wouldn't have been comprehensible because my sneezing was ridiculous. Anyway, here we are on what is a heat wave here in Britain. The Met Office has said that the heat wave has, for the first time, exceeded 30 degrees Celsius for 5 days in a row in September. It's been quite pleasant here by the sea, to be honest. I haven't felt it was too bad today at all, but supposedly, according to The Guardian, there are thundery breakdowns on the way, high air pollution. Well, I experienced that yesterday myself with the hay fever from the pollen. But in London, supposedly the pollution is very bad. There will be flash flooding and there are weather warnings on the way. So who knows what these weather forecasters are going to predict or what the truth of what they have to say is, because often they get it wrong. But the beaches here have been crowded today and there are people everywhere. And, as they always say, as Noel Coward once said, it's only mad dogs and Englishmen who go out in the English sun. And we seem to be having a sunny September. So there we go. Kaz Williams says storms tomorrow, woohoo. Obviously, you don't like the heat or you don't like the hot weather. TT loves the hot weather. It depends on what kind of temperature you prefer, but as long as you've got a bit of a breeze when you're out and about, it's not too bad. It's absolutely pleasant, and I hope you're all enjoying it. And Nekia has been barbecuing. Well, I would have had a barbecue, but my friend did not make it to join me, which was a great shame. But who knows? We may have a barbecue tomorrow, and then I'm on my way to London for a funeral for a lovely gentleman who died and recently, and it will be very sad to give him a send-off, but we will celebrate his life on Monday, and I might talk about that in due course, and I will be writing something about it after that. But I won't say any more about that for now. But there's one lady in particular who asked if I could mention her this evening. Her name is Nicola Campbell Brisland from Port in Glasgow. And Nicola was involved in a terrible car crash, and she's very battered and bruised. And she said, would I mention her and wish her well? Well, I wish you a full and speedy recovery. I don't think your car's going to be speedily recovered. I think that's the end of that car. But thank goodness you're safe, and thank goodness your passengers were safe. You're very lucky that things were not worse, and we'll pray for your speedy recovery. So a big shout out, as she requested, to Nicola Campbell Brisland of Port Glasgow. Where shall we begin? There we are. Ireland won the rugby. I haven't been watching the rugby myself, but yes, the Ireland did win the rugby. But I haven't been watching that. But most of my friends this evening are watching England playing rugby. But I'm not watching that myself. And the wonderful team from the Magnet did very well at the rugby club, the Thanet Wanderers, with Mario and Nikki from the Magnet, and June and Peter and others from the Magnet, customers, Max and Elaine, and they came second in the local quiz. So congratulations to them. They clearly had not been paying attention to the quiz with Anne Robinson, but there we are. Anyway, I will begin with Prince Andrew. He has been voted the nation's least favorite royal? Please say press 1 if you think that is accurate, or press 2 if you think Prince Harry is the nation's least favorite royal, in your view, or should be the least favorite royal. According to a report by the Mail Online, almost 80% of the public think the disgraced Duke should receive no public money. That is Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, not Prince Harry. The same percentage think he should be removed from the line of succession. They think he should receive no public money. They don't want him to be paid anything, basically. And they think he should be barred from inheriting the crown, which means that he fared even worse in public opinion than Harry and Meghan. Now, this Prince Andrew has somehow managed to have records sealed about things he's got up to until 2065. And Andrew Lowney, a biographer who I have corresponded with in the past, has been talking about this extensively. Prince Andrew is somebody who is as much use to this nation as a chocolate teapot. He is not someone of any significance. He is a bad-tempered, rude, obnoxious man who is greedy and needy, just like his useless live-in ex-wife, who has been going on about the Queen's death a year ago and going on about how she's been looking after the Queen's dogs. Do we need to hear from these two people? No, we don't. And 80% of Mail Online readers, which is a very pro-royal paper, have even taken the same view. So Randy Andy, as Melissa Neal called him, which is a perfectly accurate name. And there was a great series this week on BBC Radio 4 about Spitting Image, the TV show. And of course, he was lampooned in that. So if you get a chance, look up Randy Andy Spitting Image. And there's a great little sketch of him as Randy Andy. And they call him Randy. They call him Randy Andy. It goes something along those lines. I do urge you to watch it. It'll make many of you laugh. And that was years and years before anything came out about him and his friend Ghislaine and his friend Jeffrey Epstein. There we go. And good evening to Mary Page and your daughter Jenna. Yes. Hillary says his staff despise him. Yes. BRMC doesn't like King Charles. Well, I think King Charles does an awful lot of good, as does his wife. I don't criticize them. I think they are doing a great job for this nation and should be saluted and celebrated. There we are. And Harriet says some orange socks are on the way. Well, that's very kind of you, Harriet. I appreciated all sorts of lovely gifts that people have sent to me. Care of the Magnet, Albion Street, Broadstairs. But there is no need for people to send things, but I do appreciate everything. And I particularly enjoyed the gin and the books and all the other things, as well as other items. And yesterday met a lovely lady called Sonia and her friend who came to visit. And they had a lovely afternoon with us and met some of the local people, and that was delightful. But going back to Prince Andrew, he is somebody one wouldn't want to welcome into one's home, one's neighborhood, anywhere. He should be sent to Siberia, along with his needy and greedy wife. And again, I asked the question of Fergie. Did you ever, Fergie, repay the loan and other benefits you took from Jeffrey Epstein? That is the only question that I feel should be answered by this particular woman. She happily took these loans after Mr. Epstein had got out of prison the first time. Now, it would have been known to anyone because they They had advisors. They're not stupid. But they happily continued to associate with somebody who was a known criminal. And that is not respectful or right. And for this Fergie to be going on about the late Queen, it's quite ridiculous, given that she has done nothing to say, anything about the situation that she involved herself in and inveigled herself with a criminal who had done terrible things to young people and continued to do terrible things to young people until he killed himself, and associated with a very wicked woman who was the daughter of someone who stole £500 million from pensioners. This, to me, is unacceptable. And I think Fergie and Prince Andrew should be called out again and again for this. It's bad choice enough that they spend time, Prince Andrew spends time with the dreaded Bernie Ecclestone, who's a man about to go on trial himself in later this next month, the month after. These people have no moral compass and they have no sense. They're not streetwise and they're not worldly wise, and that is enough. Do I use the proper spelling toe rag or toe rag? Well, it's toe rag. It's spelt with an E, not a W, because it's not a towpath, for example. We're not towing them along, but we should be towing them along with a towpath and chucking them off the towpath. Awful people. Anyway, birds of a feather flock together, says Laney. Well, yes, they do. And, Fergie and Andrew have had a history of associating with odd or bad people, and that is something quite wrong, given their positions. But they have been forgiven again and again, but I think enough is enough now. It is time that those two were removed from having anything to do with any of us. We don't want to hear from them. I wish Fergie a full recovery from her cancer. Wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy, but it doesn't mean that we should have to put up with them. We don't want them. And the Mail Online have quite rightly said 80% of their readers don't want them around. They are boring and they are greedy and they're grasping and they're terribly behaved. And he paid £12 million potentially, maybe a bit less, to a woman he claimed he'd never met. You wouldn't do that if you were totally without blame for your behaviour. You wouldn't go on Emily Maitlis and then have Lady Victoria Harvey come out and say, oh, it was all the lights, they set him up. Well, nobody put a gun up Prince Andrew's head. Nobody said, you have to go on this programme. He chose to do it. He could have walked out of that interview at any moment. He is a scandalous piece of toe rag, as was rightly raised as a word earlier. I think that this individual, Prince Andrew, should be sent to the Tower. He should be sent to Siberia, preferably instead, as long as he's never seen again. He is truly dreadful, and along with his nephew, Prince Harry, they bring shame upon the royal family, the pair of them. And as for Meghan, we've all had enough of hearing about her, and now they're allegedly buying another house. Well, who's paying for that? That's obviously some well-wisher. The house they live in should be sufficient. We don't need to know any more about them and their houses, and we just wish they would all go away. And I can tell you, the people I know who live in Montecito, they don't want anything to do with this awful couple. The people of Hollywood have all walked away from them. There we go. They've only got 13 bathrooms, points out Eisnecker. Yes, well, you can only use one at a time, can't you? So, absolutely ludicrous. It was like a couple I used to know in Florida. They had an indoor and an outdoor swimming pool. I said, well, you can only swim in one at a time. They had 7 Ferraris in the garage. I said, well, I said, why do you have those? And he said, one for every day of the week. Why pay less when you can pay more? And it's all very well, but you can only drive one at a time. People don't need all of these things, and all of this greed is not helping the world, is it? We don't really need to have those things. It's lovely to have beautiful things, and don't get me wrong, I love lovely cars, and I love beautiful homes and things like that. But you don't really need an indoor and an outdoor swimming pool, because you can't use both at the same time. But not if you wish to have such, that's your choice. But it's rather wasteful with the water, isn't it? And we shouldn't waste things in this world, because resources are not infinite. There we are. Token Spirit says greed is rampant these days. Yes, I think it is. There's a lot of greedy people out there, but there's also a lot of good people. So don't forget those people. There are people who do good things. So Mario, who from the Magnet, raised over £300 for the Graham Burns charity for breast cancer, and also for the RNLI yesterday. He completed his challenge to stop drinking for a month. Now, I don't think I'd be very good at that. So I say an almighty cheers to Mario, and I also say a huge thanks to June, who came on our program only 2 days ago. June's video has now been watched by well over 3,500 people, and that's been utterly spectacular. June loves Boris and she loves Brexit, and I take a very different view, but we proved that people of differing views can actually get along, and I think that is something great in this world, and I think we need to have more people having views like that, as opposed to people being argumentative and just shouting from the rooftops. Coming to which, I will move along to somebody who does shout from the rooftops, a woman called Liz Jones. Now, I need to have a drink before I talk about her. She is truly, she's enough to drive anybody to drink. Now, Liz Jones, I don't know how many of you have heard of Liz, but Liz, I wrote about first in, I think it was 2012. Now, today, Liz, who works for the Mail mostly, Liz Jones is her name, she has written an article for the You magazine. It's called Liz Jones's Diary, in which I feel more alone than ever. I'll provide you with a link. I am trying to learn how all of this works. So there you go. There's a link to it. It's part of the Mail, and it's a Saturday magazine called You. And in it, she talks about her summer. Now, this is a woman who goes on about a number of things. She continually bangs on about money, men. She moans. She used to work for Marie Claire, and she's materialistic. She is what I would call a bombastic harpy. This is a dreadful woman who has to talk about how wealthy she is. You know, how she's had rows with different people. She doesn't seem to get on with anybody. This article, I'm on the train home after my mini break with Minnie, that's her dog, in Totnes, which is in Devon. The apartment was perfect, with a huge terrace, a big green egg barbecue, an enormous outside table, deck chairs, organic bed linen. Everything has to be about what she's got and how wealthy she is. She hadn't packed dog food as the dog would. Now she wagers that the dog will only eat restaurant food. She went to decompress. She rented a 4-bedroom house. Why am I alone? She said. Well, the reason she's alone is because she would be utterly vile to spend time with. She felt anxious. She couldn't get a taxi firm to take her to a restaurant that was 40 miles each way. Well, it's hardly surprising. They probably didn't want her. She wanted to take Minnie to the beach, but worried it would be too much for her. She watched the Women's World Cup on her laptop, fearing if she went to a pub, the cheering would upset the dog. She moaned that she was in first class on the train, but there were no crisps after over an hour. I've just told the whole carriage that I'm hyperglycemic. Why on a Sunday evening in August was everywhere shut? And she went on and on. This is a woman who is pretentious. And I wrote about her back in 2012 when she gave up owning a house in rural England, also in, I think it was Devon or Somerset. Oh, in Somerset. She bought a house in 2007 for 1.6 million, a farmhouse, and went to live in the countryside. She is a woman who was born in 1958, became editor of Marie Claire in 1999, and was sacked. She is completely ludicrous. She did come from Islington, and when she moved down there, she described the locals, which I think is extremely rude, as faintly Amish, feral, old, and smelly. And then she wondered why they didn't like her. She said they didn't approve of her articles. She said, I had given up trying to eat out in restaurants here in Exmoor. It is still stuck in the 70s. With only things in baskets and rum barbers on the menu. If you tell the waiter you're a vegetarian, which she goes on and on about, you are stared at incredulously as if you are black. This woman is ridiculous. She said, I will never, ever meet a man here in the middle of a moor where even to be in possession of your own teeth is a bonus. I didn't increase my popularity, she adds, by being unable to pass a party of men and often children with guns shooting rabbits and deer without getting out of my BMW. And she loves to talk about her BMW and saying, do you have nothing better to do with your Saturday morning? The look of shock on their faces that I had the cheek to challenge them was priceless. I would stop too and shout at huntsmen on horses, galloping on the tarmac roads, one hand on the reins, the other clamping a mobile phone to their heads. You will ruin your horse's tendons, I would wail. In 2009, one neighbor told The Independent, we have nothing in common with her. I think she may find it difficult to make any kind of life here now. She is not a very friendly person, and we're all sick to death of talking about Liz Jones. A hatred has been building up for months. She's actually having a go at people, and they're not going to tolerate this. She has been having feelings. She has feelings like all people, of course she has, but everyone wants her to leave and leave now. No one can make her, but we think she will go. I don't see how you can live in such a small community with people who think about you that way. She said that she felt deprived of Space NK, Kath Kidson, and Illy Coffee, and, she couldn't cope with the passengers on the bus. She said that she ended up lonely, and she would go and sit in her car to listen to the kind voice of the sat-nav lady. I've learned that an amazing view and a pair of nesting grey herons are not enough to make me happy, she concluded. Anyway, she eventually sold this house, and people said good riddance. But I don't understand how this woman is still being allowed to publish stupid articles such as the one today in which she talks about, her time going to visit a place. V-neck and my Gucci slides. Everything has got to be a brand and everything's got to cost a lot. That's all she cares about. She had to enlist 3 men and a woman to help get Minnie the dog, who is scared of the gap, back onto the train carriage. I believe she is childless. Yes, Simon. Nicole, she is shallow. She thinks she's Carrie Bradshaw. Well, she's a Poundland version, perhaps. But there we go. Mind the gap. Yes, well, she does need to mind the gap. But no, I have to say, this woman is just one of the worst people to write at all, and I don't understand why she's there. But moving along, we will talk of another Liz. So, an equally useless Liz, in fact, one who did a lot worse in many ways, given she nearly bankrupted this country, is Liz Truss. Now, Liz Truss is going to be writing a book. It's going to be about her 49 days in power in Great Britain. Well, do we need to have a book by her? I think it is ludicrous that Liz Truss will now have security for the rest of her life because she was prime minister. She will be treated like all other prime ministers, and she will be, at the cenotaph with all the other prime ministers for Remembrance Sunday. Honestly, this woman should not be treated like a typical prime minister. She didn't achieve anything. She's written a book which is coming out in the spring. She's talking about how she still can't believe it. She still can't believe it, she said. I still can't believe it, she said. Of how little her impact she actually made. She said she has pinch me moments. It's not a book, it's a post-it note. Well, it should be. But she said what we need is a conservative revival. She still struggles to compute what happened. She blames the Bank of England for her plight. By the time I became PM, it was frankly too late. The global left were in control. Well, she certainly was not in control. She said taxes are at the highest in 70 years under Rishi Sunak. We need to get a Republican back in the White House. And she fears for the West. Now, this woman has achieved zilch, zero, nothing, nout. She should not be celebrated in any regard. We should forget about Liz Truss. Liz Truss is a footnote in history and should be removed from the narrative. We don't need to have any more about Liz Truss. So please, Liz Truss, don't publish your book. It will go the same way as Prince Harry's Spare. It will be in the bargain basement bucket. It will be in the freebie corner in Tesco supermarkets. Help yourself to a book if you can't, or donate one if you wish to. That's the only place suitable for Liz Truss's book. I will not be buying Liz Truss's book myself. I urge none of you to buy it. I was sent a lovely book by a friend of mine, Alexis, this week. It's called TikTok. It's Wine O'Clock. Trivia, jokes, and quotes on all things wine. It's quite amusingly captioned on the back. Always read responsibly. Store sideways at room temperature. Do not refrigerate. Not suitable for laying down. Enjoy now. Anyway, this book is published by SJG Publishing and was written by someone called Michael Powell. So I urge you to get a copy of that. And it says, this book is dedicated to all wine lovers, especially those who need to wine away the hours until it's time for you know what. It's comforting to think that it's always wine o'clock somewhere in the world. What's the earliest you can uncork a bottle without feeling guilty? Well, as I always say, time is only for the middle classes. And if you can't have one at 11, have 11 at 1. But this is a wine snob-free zone. It's packed with wine-related trivia, jokes, and quotations. But it also gives the juice on 18 of the most important winemaking grapes, so you can learn a bit about what you're drinking. And it's simply fun to read. As Helen McGinn, who was on the Saturday Kitchen, the lady who's on that often, says, pop, glug, 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 chink, ah. These are a few of my favourite noises, marking as they do the most sacred of my nightly rituals. Wine o'clock. Well, you can have wine in the daytime, Helen, so you often seem to do that yourself, I've noticed. Every day I say, Tina, you've got to stop drinking so much Prosecco, says one. Good job my name is Rachel, says another. There we are. The do's and don'ts of wine tasting. A horse walks into a wine bar. He trots over to the bartender and says, I'll have a small glass of house white, please. The bartender is stunned, so she goes into the back room to speak to the owner. Hey, boss, she says, there's a talking horse out there drinking wine. The owner pauses for a second, then replies, well, then serve him, but charge him double. Horses don't know the price of wine. So the bartender goes back, hands the horse a small house white, and takes his money. You know, says she, we don't get many horses around here. The horse replies, at these prices, I'm not surprised. There we are. So it's got all sorts of bizarre things. Positive wine affirmations. Right. Wine gives me a reason to wake up every afternoon, says one. Sometimes you just want to channel your inner inspiration. What would Oprah do? What would Greta Thunberg do? What would I do with a Cabernet Sauvignon, asks another. There we are. All wine should be tasted. Some should only be sipped, but with others, drink the whole bottle, says Paulo Coelho. There we are. Karl Marx once said, be careful to trust a person who does not like wine. Basil Bunting said, always carry a corkscrew and the wine shall provide itself. So there you are. Anyway, if you want a good book to give to someone as a gift who loves wine, there's a fun thing. TikTok, it's Wine O'Clock. You already have it. Have I met Alan Titchmarsh? I keep being asked this evening. I have met Mr. Titchmarsh. I don't know him well. When I used to have a drinks company I was involved in, we used to send him bottles of one of our products, and he used to enjoy it very much, and he wrote several very pleasant letters. So he's been very polite. I think Mr. Titchmarsh is a jolly good man and seems like a decent person. I don't know him well. What do I think of Jeremy Kyle? I think he is utterly reprehensible, and I thought his interview with Ghislaine and Maxwell was completely boring and stupid, and well, it served her right that she got put in the hole for doing it. She couldn't even get a better quality of interviewer. Shame on Jeremy Kyle and shame on her. Absolutely appalling. What do I think of Prince Andrew? Well, we already talked about him, but I think he belongs in Siberia, along with his stupid live-in ex-wife and his ridiculous friend Bernard Eccleston. They should all go off together. Perhaps they could take Bernie's yacht, which he's been trying to sell for a long time, which nobody seems to want to buy, and maybe they could go and live on that in Siberia, the three of them. Hope they have fun. Hope they don't, really. Never mind. Do I know anyone called Rupert? Yes, I have several friends called Rupert. I don't know why that's a question, but I do know people called Rupert. I know people who are called Brian, yes. Was Brian Ferry a kind person? I believe Brian Ferry is still alive, so I believe he's still a kind person. I don't know him, but I have no problem with Brian Ferry. I don't believe Robert Maxwell was pushed off the boat. I think he tried to kill himself and, well, he succeeded, didn't he? So there we go. Have I met Anthony Hopkins? No, but I think Anthony Hopkins was utterly wonderful in The Remains of the Day, which I think is the most wonderful film. The book is even better in my view, Kazuo Ishiguro. For a man who'd never been to Britain at that stage to write a book that was so accurate about English society was fantastic. And I think the story is captivating, and I've watched that film probably 10, 15 times. I like it very much. And Emma Thompson was wonderful in it, and also what a great thing. Do I know Sonia Poulton? I don't know Sonia Poulton, but I have heard of her. She has done lots of reporting on various stories, and I've seen some of her videos, but no, I don't know her, no. There we are. There we go. You had a pile of Rupert annuals. Well, Rupert the Bear was a lovely series, and yes, I used to like that as a child very much. Absolutely fantastic. I don't have any visitors tonight. No, I was due to have a barbecue, but my friends could not get here because there are engineering works on the train lines, and there's problems with the roads, and there's always a problem somewhere. So there we go. Have I met Jack Wilde? I don't know who Jack Wilde is. Sorry. Can't help you with that one. You would think I would do well recording for an audio book production. Well, I don't know about that. I can't stand my own voice. When I listen back to these things, I think I sound utterly awful. But there we are. Have I spoke about? Have I spoke? You mean have I spoken about the young man that escaped from the prison? Yes. Well, we're about to come to him. He's on our agenda, so we will be coming up to that. Is it possible to separate an artist from the artist's behavior? Well, yes, it is, because people can be wonderful in one regard and utterly awful in another, and it doesn't mean you have to like that person for you to like their work. There are plenty of examples of people who haven't done things as bad as Michael Jackson, who allegedly did. And Michael Jackson was somebody who was abused by his own father, and many people who are abused become abusers. So you have to see what is the backstory behind such a situation. It's difficult because he had a very troubled upbringing, and he didn't really know right from wrong. And Ghislaine is a similar person. Ghislaine was, I believe, if you believe Eleanor Berry, daughter of Lord Hartwell, who claims she witnessed scenes, then Ghislaine was abused by her own father. So, many people who are abused go on to become abusers. And equally, if you come from a family where perhaps your father's a robber or something, you probably don't have a problem with going into a shop and doing a bit of robbery, but it doesn't mean that you will end up like that. Many people break the cycle. Many people who come from bad backgrounds do good things. It all depends on the individual case. But Michael Jackson was a talented musician, but a very troubled man. I think that is a fair assessment of his character, in my view, from my own experience. I only ever encountered him once because he stayed at someone I know's home, and he regularly stayed at their home. And I found the man to be a bit like a child, really. He was very, very strange, but what a talented man, but also what a troubled man. And the truth we will know, because he's no longer with us, so we can't go any further. But there are plenty of other people who have caused terrible things for people in this world who should be brought to justice. And the likes of Gary Glitter, I would say it's slightly different, because Gary Glitter shows no remorse. The minute he got out into a bail hostel, he started going on this dark web, and he started doing bad things again, which is why he's now back in prison. Now, he has repeatedly committed these offences again and again after he's been in prison, and he doesn't show signs of changing. He is a clearly evil, wicked, monstrous, vile man. And the stupid Jim Davidson should be ashamed of himself for what he had to say about it. Having visited him in the prison, the Verne on the Isle of Wight, or the Isle of, I think it's the Isle of Wight or the Isle of Portland, I can't remember which. No, Gary Glitter is someone who clearly cannot be reformed, and the parole board should be held to account for having let him out, because they clearly did not check his background properly, because the minute he got out, he went to live in a bail hostel, and he got hold of a mobile phone, and he went on this dark web, and he was going to do it again and again. And he clearly should not be allowed out. This man is a danger to the community. Now, people in prison, should be given second chances. He has used up as more chances than any cat with 9 lives. He's more like a cat with 13 lives, and he's already got through all of those. And what he did to children abroad and thought he could pay them off with 50p is just disgusting. And that evil, evil man should rot in prison forevermore, I think. I don't think Paul Gadd, Gary Glitter as his other name, should be tolerated in any kind of society, because he is a danger to any community that he moves into, because he has never shown signs of remorse or seeking rehabilitation. So Joe Black loved Jim Davidson. Well, I can tell you, I was once in a private members club in central London in the afternoon in the drawing room, and I was there with somebody I know, I won't say who, and Jim Davidson walked in, and they said, "We are leaving now." She said, "I will not stay in the same room as that ghastly man." That person was right. Jim Davidson is another person I have utterly no time for. He did say himself he was a homophobic ARSE something. Yes, that is who he is. He's a terrible racist bigot. And I do not like Jim Davidson, and I do not like GB News. I think these things are no good for society. They don't add anything. And I don't know if you saw GB News's coverage of the Daniel Khalife case, which we're coming to next, but the presenter couldn't even speak about it. They're amateurs. They do things very badly. I am an amateur, but I don't claim to be otherwise, and I do not have the backing of a hedge fund. I'm here talking to you now just by myself. So, I think GB News giving a platform to Gary Glitter's friend, Jim Davidson, is, well, it's indicative of the quality of the lowbrow rubbish they attract on. But, they're still employing Dan Wootton. Now, Mr. Wootton is neither innocent nor guilty, but the Byline Times have done a very good investigation. Why is he not suspended? And why is he talking about Philip Schofield with Christopher Biggins, another person who really gets rather carried away with himself? I think enough is enough with this GB News. I don't watch it. I will not tune in. I will not help them with their viewing numbers. The fact that they have Nigel Farage, as in garage, not Farage, is another example of why that channel is wrong. But Jim Davidson, an apologist for Gary Glitter, is not somebody who I would ever wish to spend any time with. Mr. Davidson is a shameful, bigoted, horrible man, and he admits it himself in his own comments, and you can read the comments on my articles about Gary Glitter. So I have quoted what Jim Davidson has said about other people in the past, and Jim Davidson may think he's funny. I don't think I think everyone's laughing at him, not with him. His jokes went out with Bernard Manning and all of those kind of people. It's something for the past, and absolutely awful. Evola's Sunglasses says we need more media, not less. We can switch off. Well, we do all have the right to switch off, yes. So if you enjoy watching GB News, that's fair enough. I don't mind you watching it. It doesn't bother me. I don't have to watch it myself. I look at lots of things. Some of them I don't agree with. But I don't bother with GB News because it's not a reliable source of information. Equally, I don't watch This Morning. I don't think that's a reliable source of information. And I think that's got out with the arc. And my petition on change.org, which I urge you all to support, about This Morning, if you could please try and share it, it would be appreciated, because it's already gone well over 1,000 signatures. That is not nearly in the league of my petition against Merrilies van der Meer, and which has now reached nearly 50,000. The woman that goes around slaying giraffes, and she makes me very upset, and I find her revolting. And I got her stupid video removed from YouTube because of one technicality. She breached copyright on music. And also my petition against Larissa Switlick, a woman who goes around abusing sheep in Britain, and also killing rare endangered species with Donald Trump's children. She is another piece of toe rag, and I've got that to about 25,000. So please sign all three of them if you can on change.org. But the petition that is most relevant is the one currently, is the one regarding This Morning, which I think should be axed. I also think the program Loose Women should be axed. I don't think these programs have any place in modern society. They are boring and they're tedious, and we should have better quality programming instead of this lowbrow tat. Absolute rubbish. There we are. I tend to watch the politics live on a weekday. That's about the only program I watch of daytime television, but even that has gone downhill. The quality of the guests is abysmal. I watch it less and less, which is a great shame, because it used to be a very good show when Andrew Neil presented it. I quite enjoyed it. Whether you like or loathe Andrew Neil, it was actually a better show. And this Jo Coburn was actually quite a good host herself, but whoever produces the guests on that show, please up your game. Not good enough. So to conclude, our final topic, and I haven't sneezed yet. I would have been terrible yesterday because my hay fever was epic by the evening. Our final topic is Daniel Khalife, the 21-year-old who escaped under a food truck from Wandsworth Prison. Now, how on earth this happened, that is something that I've spoken with several journalists about today, who have made detailed inquiries. There we are. So, they've recaptured him. They found him on the Grand Union Canal with a bike. Now, where did he get the bike? Now, he could have stolen the bike. That's easy enough. A sleeping bag. Well, it's a bit harder for him to steal a sleeping bag, which would suggest someone perhaps gave him the sleeping bag. So where did he get the sleeping bag? Who gave him the sleeping bag? These are the questions that should be asked. He had a Waitrose cool bag of groceries. Well, of course, being in Chiswick, it's a very middle-class area. Catherine Tate could have done a sketch about it in one of her comedy shows. The family with the children who would go on safari in the Serengeti, and then the mother would drive them to Tottenham, and they would scream when somebody threw water on the window of the car, "We're all going to die." I think that's the kind of people who live in Chiswick, not a spy who's Iranian, an ex-Royal Signals Corps soldier. And, how did he get a full change of clothes? Where did he get these clothes? So somebody out there was helping him. Now, they should be arrested because they aided and abetted this criminal. And, who were these people? So in the coming days, I hope that we get to know this, because I was talking about another case, the lady that rammed the BMW into the school. Why don't we know anything about her? That case has gone all quiet. It seems strange that a lot of these incidents involving the Metropolitan Police are completely hushed up and we don't get to hear the real truth. It's absolutely ludicrous. So the police have said he was fully cooperative with officers when he was detained. Well, he's probably got the mentality of a soldier, and he just does as he's told when he gets caught. But he will stand trial for his original offences. Now, will he be charged with extra offences? That's what we need to know. He cost the country a fortune in delays at airports for people because there had to be extra security. There was a poor young man called Horatio Castile, and Mr. Castile, age 19, was arrested in Banbury and handcuffed, and he's now being targeted by cougars, because they all think that he was some attractive person, and he's tried to explain, his 5 minutes of fame, which he thinks is all very odd. But who knows? He could end up like this, that man, the hot felon, as he was called, who ended up marrying Chloe Green, the daughter of the pension-plundering Philip and Tina Green, the BHS people. So, but this man, Daniel Khalife, he disappeared for 3 weeks in January. So why on earth did he go to Chiswick? Very odd. You'd think he'd go somewhere a bit more remote. He was, not many miles away from where he'd escaped. Now, people have been making jokes on Twitter, including Gary Lineker and all sorts of people. And people have made jokes he could have gone and visited Philip Schofield, who lives in that part of West London. He could have hidden with Mr. Blobby, all sorts of bizarre things. But why did this boy not get away further? He was clearly clever enough to use the plastic from under his bed to make straps that he could tie himself to underneath a lorry and hide out there. So what on earth was he doing standing around in the middle of Chiswick? He could have gone much further away. Obviously, he was aided. Why did the person who aided him not send him further? But we will probably get to know this in due course, or we may not. But there is something more to this story than meets the eye. And that's where I should leave it with that. But Sophiana says, I would rather be in prison than in Chiswick. Well, Chiswick has some lovely parts to it, and there's some beautiful places by the river, but I don't think you'd rather be in prison than in Chiswick. But there we are. So, yes. Anyway, we have 7 minutes left, so if you have any questions, please ask them now. And thank you to you all for your support. You've been wonderful. Please come to Edinburgh. Well, I may well be doing a little tour of the UK shortly. We will be confirming such in due course. So Edinburgh would definitely be on my agenda. Most definitely. I love Edinburgh. Some great places there. I love walking up Offa's Seat there, and the wonderful restaurants and the Royal Mile and everything else about it. It's a delightful place, and I love Edinburgh. Yes. Daniel was too old for Schofield. Well, I think he was 21, and the boy that was arrested in Banbury was 19. And, there we are. That's all I shall say about that. There we go. So, are we having a quiz? Not tonight. No quiz tonight, because I have nobody to help me with the quiz, and I can't take notes and do the quiz at the same time. But we can have another quiz in due course. So, yes, a tour would be wonderful. Well, I think you will find there may be one soon. Who's my favorite artists and artwork? I like all sorts of things. I like Alfred Munnings. I like the Scottish colorists. old masters, all sorts of things, lots of different artists. There we go. Have I seen the programs on Fred Dibner, the Steeplejack? Of course I have. Fred Dibner was one of my favorite programs to watch when I was young. I loved that Victoria. Very good. Would I wear a kilt? No, I won't wear a kilt because I'm not Scottish. I think that would be insulting to Scottish people because I'm not a fake Scot. So I am an English person. I'm a British person, but I would say I'm not going to insult Scottish people by pretending to be Scottish when I'm not. So Victoria, the next Victoria says, I have no favourite anything. I have things I like, but I don't see why everything should be a favourite because everything depends on your mood. That's all I shall say in response to that. You need me to look up who Jack Wilde is. Well, I will in due course, but I've not heard of him. I can't answer that right now because I'm talking to you. Was it a bad idea for Prince Andrew to be driven by the Prince of Wales? Well, I would say yes, but that's just my personal view. Do I take the Underground when in London? I have been known to, yes, but I generally tend to walk in London, and when I'm there, or take taxis. But when I'm in London on Monday for a funeral, I will walk a little, and I will be collecting somebody who I shall be taking a taxi to a funeral service. So I won't probably be using the Underground then, but the transport system in this country is incredibly unreliable. And it's utterly shocking, and I have had enough of these strikes. I think the strikes are irresponsible and wrong. They get paid perfectly enough. And closing ticket stations is also a dreadful thing by this government. Shouldn't be allowed because many people are elderly, infirm, unable to use these stupid machines. The ticket offices should be kept open. Yes, lots of people go on the London Underground. It's a perfectly valid form of transport, but it depends. When I'm in London, I like to walk because I like to see things, so I walk around. Or I like buses. There's nothing wrong with a bus. Yes. Are you willing to house an immigrant as we are as a nation struggling? Well, if I had ample space, I would, but I don't, so I can't possibly do that. But I help people in other ways, and I do my bit to help the homeless people because I think it's appalling in this country we have homelessness. So I have been known to do things to help homeless people in a personal capacity, and I think that is something we all must do. And in the lockdowns, I used to take homeless people food in London, and at Christmas Day, when I was there, I would always take food parcels to people who lived in the local community who were homeless. And there was a gentleman who lived around the corner from me, and most days when I saw him, he liked having lemonade, and he was an elderly man, and I would take him a bottle of lemonade or whatever he wanted. I think we should all just help in a small way that we can to anyone who deserves help, but we should all do it in our own way that we feel comfortable with. And I have been to soup kitchens and helped there on occasions and done different things in the past, but I think it's up to each of us to do what we can. Some of the people in this local community, there's a gentleman here who runs marathons with a karaoke machine, and he sings, and he's raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for breast cancer, and I think that's a wonderful thing to do. So there we go. Well, we're nearly over now, so I will say thank you very much to you all, and wish you all a lovely evening, and I hope you have a peaceful and wonderful Sunday, and don't get too hot. Keep yourself with a good drink, lots of ice, lots of gin. Enjoy. Have a wonderful evening, and good night and good gardening to you all. Take care. Good night. Pip pip.